The Economic Development and Tourism Committee meeting on February 10th. We're going to do a hearing only today on SB 57 from Senator Hickman. Before we get started, a couple of things. I want to thank Paige and Anna for getting here at 7 o'clock this morning and getting this all organized. Thank y'all. Sean Marie, thank you for everything. Nick, thank you for all your hard work on this. I know y'all been working late hours doing a committee sub. We do have a committee sub. Let me just read the LC number we're working off of. LC 365485S. Is that correct, Senator Hickman?
Yes, sir.
Okay, SB 57. Senator Summers, would you open us up with prayer, please? What mic is that?
Eight.
Thank you.
Our most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you again today, seeking your wisdom, seeking your guidance, seeking your love. We ask that you bless all these folks on this special day of Valentine's Day. We ask that you make sure that we do the right thing for the people of Georgia and, of course, the people of the United States of America. Thank you for this country. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Senator. And he brought that up. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody out in the audience. Thank y'all for being here. If someone wants to sign up, is there a sign up sheet? There's a sign up sheet right here if you want to sign up for public comment. And we will take public comment right after Senator Hickman presents his bill. Senator Hickman, if you would go on up front, I'd appreciate it, and bring whoever you would like to be with you on as a witness. Or Senator Hickman, you want to sit here or you want to stand there? You feel better? Okay. All right. Is that Mike? Podium mic? All right.
Hey, there you go.
Okay.
There you go. Well, first of all, the gentleman that may speak today along with me is Josh Belafonte and Bo Moore. And so if after me, I know one of them at least will speak. But thank y'all for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about a very exciting time in our state of Georgia, and that's called sports betting. The most important thing about our bill is our bill treats all sports equally. Okay, treats all sports equally. I don't know how many of you in here, and I don't want to raise the hands because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I don't know how many of you in here bet on the Super Bowl the other night. Well, I did. I had to bet on an outlet in Tennessee in order to do it. I don't know how many of you over the weekend bet on any horse races. I did. I had to bet on an outlet in Florida in order to do it. That's what we're trying to do away with. We're trying to bring those revenues to Georgia. So again, our bill treats all sports equally. If you go back a little bit, Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to be here. If you go back a little bit, a year or so ago in the Senate, we voted on sports betting, and the vote was 41-10. But we thought at that time you had to have a constitutional amendment to get it on the ballot and all. Last year, we voted on horse racing, thinking we had to have a constitutional amendment, and the vote was 34-17 in favor of it. 41-10 the year for sports betting in favor of it. 34-17 last year in favor of horse racing. Didn't have enough to make it a constitutional amendment, but now we don't have to have a constitutional amendment. If you Chief Justice, former Chief Justice Harold Melton says that by running this through the lottery, which is what we're going to do, there is not a constitutional amendment required. No constitutional amendment required, just a simple majority by the Senate and by the House. Sports betting is deemed a lottery game. Where we're looking at on this, and also where a House version is, they're talking about fixed odds betting. What is fixed odds betting? Fixed odds betting is that whenever Senator Malley bets on a Kansas City and Philadelphia the other night, if his odds were 4-1, and then I went and bet later 2-1, his odds always stayed at 4-1. My odds always stayed at 2-1. So if I won Kansas City, then my odds are 2-1, his odds are 4-1. That's fixed odds betting. The difference is with the when we put in the lottery several years ago, there was a very strong line in there that said that we would not have parimutuel betting or casinos without a constitutional amendment. Okay. In this bill, there's no wording on parimutuel betting. There's no wording on casinos. So that's where we're going. That's where we're working from. we're working from the fact we're going into the lottery's going, as I talking, you said, the lottery is the one that's going to manage this, handle it. Horse racing is a sport. I don't know how many of y'all ever heard the term sport of kings. We've heard that forever and ever. Horse racing is a sport, just like the Braves, just like the Falcons, just like the Hawks, just like NASCAR, just like the Masters. Senate Bill 57 treats all of these sports equally. All of them equally. The only difference in all this is that Senate Bill 57, Mr. Chairman, it, according to an economic impact study that we had done, prepared last year, Senate Bill 57 will create over 8,500 jobs in Georgia. Let me emphasize that. That's in rural Georgia. Creates over 8,500 jobs and over $1 billion economic impact in rural Georgia. That's more jobs than Chick-fil-A has in Georgia. That's more jobs than Lockheed Martin has in Georgia. That's how significant this situation is. Senate Bill 57 would allow you to bet on horse racing the same way that you would bet on the Braves versus the Mets. Same way you bet on the Falcons versus the Saints. Same way you'd bet on Tiger Woods to win the Masters. The same way you'd bet on Chase Elliott, who is from Dawsonville, Georgia, to win a NASCAR race down at Atlanta Motor Speedway. The same way that you would bet on number 4 horse at Gulfstream Park or Georgia Racing track to win the number 6 race in Georgia. All those are the same. It's no different. We already have horse racing in Georgia. It's legal in Georgia. You know, there's all kind of what they call bush tracks in rural Georgia. What this would do, this would put it all under lottery, and there would be sanctioned tracks. All money, very, very important. Y'all have heard me talk about, and then somebody asked me a few minutes ago, where are we at on, I think Mike asked me on a lottery bill. Literacy bill. You know, we know in Georgia, we got a real problem. We don't have a literacy problem. We got an illiteracy problem. All monies from the sports betting bill number 57 is going to go to the Georgia lottery. Based on Kiplinger's letter, y'all all familiar with Kiplinger's tax letter, business letter, that type of letter. Kiplinger says that in the United States this year, and they just said it in February, there'll be over $100 billion bet in sports this year. If you look at that and kind of move it back into Georgia, this potentially could be $300 to $400 million additional money going to the lottery. So now at this point, I want to, before we take any questions, I'll take a couple questions, and then I think Mr. Belafonte wants to talk.
Any questions from the committee? All right, Senator Summers.
Senator Hickman,
Yes, sir.
now, this is a little short bill that you got right here.
Yes, sir.
Is anything hidden in this bill that might cost the state of Georgia any money?
No, sir, there's no tax credits, there's no tax benefits. The people that are willing to do this have asked for no tax credits or benefits. They'll be treated just like any other business in Georgia.
Follow-up question.
Yes.
Senator, where will these tracks be? I mean, I've often said, you know, I support what you're trying to do and letting people vote, people gamble, whatever they want to do. But I want to know, are we talking about in rural Georgia? Are we talking about tracks in metro Atlanta? Where will these tracks be?
The bill that we got does not specify that. The bill that we got says that there will be a maximum of 3 tracks, and it will be determined by the Georgia lottery.
Maximum of 3 tracks.
Yes, sir. Maximum 3 tracks.
Senator, I would tell you, I think the market will kind of
Market will
bear that where they go.
That's right.
I
I agree.
understand, but
But
I'm all for
to
rural
his
Georgia.
point, rural Georgia will benefit with hay farms, horse farms, and such that
Right.
It'll create jobs all around the state.
Correct.
This is about creating a equine ecosystem of jobs.
Right.
Okay,
Along with the fact that this is a sport just like the Braves and Mets, all that together. but this will be a economic benefit of Georgia. And I'm not to say that sports betting as far as the Braves and all that won't be an economic benefit, but this will be a huge benefit.
Does the committee understand fixed odds that,
I'm asking that question.
okay, let me go to Senator Dugan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I'm neither for nor against on this, but I want to be informed when we get in there. You were talking about fixed odds betting. I have seen the operation in Kentucky and it's the same operation, but they were calling it pari-mutuel. What's the difference in the two?
Well, again, pari-mutuel,
Yeah.
if I go, let's just give an example like this. If I go bet on a horse or bet on a ball game in a pari-mutuel situation, when I go bet, odds may be 5-1. Okay. The more money that's bet on a situation, the lower the odds get. Okay, because it's based upon the money bet on a team or bet on a horse situation. So if you go bet, your odds may be 3-1. I'm 5-1, 3-1. The next thing when Senator Hodges comes in, he may bet a bunch of money and drop the odds down to 9-5. All of a sudden that particular horse or team wins, everybody's odds then become 9-5. Even though you bet it to 3-1, or I bet 5-1, it drops down. So the more money is bet on a particular situation, the lower the odds get. Okay. Now the difference with fixed odds is that if when I bet 5-1, if that particular situation wins, my odds are always 5-1. If you bet 3-1, your odds are always 3-1. If Senator Hodges bets 9-5, his odds are always 9-5. So they're called fixed odds betting. That's the difference with this situation. In the lottery was very specific that said that they would not allow pari-mutuel betting because people don't understand the situation where it's just odds are constantly changing.
It's no different, Senator, than if I bet the Philadelphia Eagles the other night at 1.5 and then the spread goes to 3, I'm locked in at 1.5.
Correct.
And so my bet would be on 1.5.
I know a lot about this stuff.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the question.
All right. Any other questions? What number? 9? Senator Hodges.
Senator Hickman, is there anything in this bill that would preclude a community that did not want a horse track or whatever in their community from having to accept that? And that typically, if a community doesn't want a particular business, it can deal with that with zoning matters and things like that to keep undesirable to the community businesses out. Does this change that at all?
No, sir. There's nothing in this bill to preclude that. It will actually go back to the community. And like Senator Beach said, it really would be an economic decision. But the community will decide based upon the zoning, based upon the county commissioners, based upon all that kind of stuff. So it won't be a situation. It's not a situation where we're shoving it down the community's throat. It's based on the community to decide whether they want it or not.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, what number, Senator Jones?
11.
11.
Thank you, Senator. Can you explain the relationship between the lottery and how this the betting would proceed, particularly on areas like horse racing as an example?
Senator, I'm going to defer that. If you just hold that question when Mr. Belafonte gets up here, I'll let him answer that question.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Belafonte, if you and Mr. Moore would come sit up here at Mike's 1 and 2, I'd appreciate that. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm going to get to you in just 1 second, but I want them to go ahead and be ready in the interest of time. Senator Mallow, what number are you? 2? All right.
Thank you, Senator Hickman.
Yes, sir.
I see in the bill you talk about how the lottery will dispense funds for the purposes of education. Could you kind of elaborate on that? I know we have a huge reserve in the lottery now. We haven't necessarily funded education at 35%. So what would a scenario be if we build up this massive reserve again with the lottery? How do we know that they're going to dispense the funds? I see the language here about the 10% and looking at a lot of the revenue projections that you've given. How much money are we talking?
Well, we're estimating for the sports betting in Georgia, probably $300 to $400 million. Let me address your lottery question. Okay. if you remember, I think you've heard me say this, that as we all know, pre-K is not required. Kindergarten technically is not required because it's based on age of 6 to 16. Okay, so I'll give you a prime example. I talked to the superintendent in Canada County over the weekend. I said, how many children in Canada County, Georgia, Metro Georgia, qualify for the lottery? 140. I said, excuse me, pre-K. I said, how many children are in school? 110. I said, where are the rest of them at? He said, they're sitting at home. So all this would do will be allow more money. You know, we've learned the critical years on this literacy is not 8, 9, grade 8 and 9. It's the early years of a child's life. And so we can educate them more fully or get them reading better on the pre-K and the K, then all of a sudden these other grades get better and better. So it's going to go into the lottery to help fund education. More money.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Senator Hickman, I'm going to turn it over to
Please, sir. Thank you, sir.
Josh Belafonte. The microphone is yours.
Good morning. My name is-
Introduce yourself.
Yep, my name is Josh Belafonte. I'm with the Robbins Government Relations and the Robbins Law Firm, representing Georgia Racing and Entertainment LLC.
Yeah, my name is Bo Moore with Connect South, here on behalf of the Georgia Horse Racing Coalition.
And I guess I'll start with just a broad overview. The question was, I think Senator Jones, you had, how does the money flow and how does all that work? The bill, it's interesting. The bill is very much like the bill that the House Economic Development Committee passed last year. It's based on that model. I think it's a little bit simpler. It's perhaps a little bit cleaner. It's certainly a little bit shorter based on the committee substitute. But it divides the permissible sports betting in effectively two types. One is what we call online sports betting. Think your phone, your computer, and you can do that anywhere as long as you're 21 years of age and you are physically located in the state of Georgia. That's the requirement. And of those revenues that come from online sports betting, there is what's referred to as a 20% privilege tax, which then flows to the lottery. They're exercising and playing a lottery game. That's what sports betting is defined as in the bill. And that money, 20%, flows back to the lottery, which is commensurate with many states who have enacted sports betting. The second way that you can engage in sports betting is what's called a retail kiosk. And you may have seen these things in some other states where you've gone to. You can go, it's a standalone machine. You decide and pick your bet on that. Now, here's where horse racing comes in, Senator. In terms of where you can bet on horse racing, you can do it on your phone. You can do it on the online sports betting. You can't do it on a machine unless you're at a licensed track. And the thinking there was you didn't want to open up what's referred to as OTB or off-track betting, where you could have a series of kiosks, if you will, and that's it, standing alone. In addition, there's a limitation other than at the track of 2 machines per location, 2 kiosks. So if you're looking to do retail betting, the location has to be licensed, the machine owner has to be licensed, and the person providing the data, the software behind the machine also has to be licensed. So all of those checks are there. And each of those machines, much like our traditional lottery and our COAM today, will be tied into a terminal to the lottery so that they can see what's going on and make sure that they're receiving the money that they're entitled to.
So can I interrupt you there? So if Mercedes-Benz Stadium wanted to have kiosks besides the mobile betting for a football game, they would be allowed to in the stadium?
Under the current version, they would be allowed to. Yes, sir.
Same with Augusta National that doesn't allow phones during the Masters. They would have 2 kiosks
That's
to
correct.
where they could bet on whatever golfer they want to bet on.
Correct.
Okay. What about, Senator Dugan?
So I hear those are venues. What about at the airport?
The airport would be limited to 2 as well. It would be a location, and it would have to have a location license. Now, hypothetically, and this would be where the lottery would come in with rulemaking, and the rulemaking for sports betting, unlike any other rule that the lottery currently has, would have to go through the Administrative Procedures Act. So this committee would get to see the rules first, as with the House committee. It would be subject to notice and comment. If, for example, the lottery decided that looking at the airport each of the individual restaurants constitutes a location, I think they would have the discretion to do that. And this committee could weigh in and say either that's consistent with what we intended or not. But I think the lottery would have that discretion under this bill.
Thank you. Clarify, please, for me, if you don't mind. You can't, you're doing a kiosk because you can't bet on your phone,
You're doing a kiosk as an alternative to betting on your phone.
but you can bet on your phone 24/7.
Correct. As long as you're 21 years of age and in the state of Georgia.
The kiosk makes you be 21 years of age for ID.
It would, any person having a bet would have to register and create an account, much like you do when you go onto the lotteries, digi games and so on. You have to create an account to play that. You would have to do the same thing here to engage in sports betting. And that would apply both to online sports betting, phone-based, and to the retail kiosk.
One more question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
We keep talking about horse racing, but we all keep saying sports betting. Any kind of bet, that's what I'm trying to get to, is sports betting.
There's a defined term for sports betting. And if you look at in the committee substitute, I believe it's lines 230, 225, paragraph 39, there's a list of what constitutes a sports bet or a sporting event. And sports betting would be on a sporting event.
What line are you?
Begins on line 226
225.
and goes to 237. I'm
And-
sorry, 225.
Yeah,
Yep,
and currently Georgia receives no tax off any kind of sports betting, basically like this.
that is correct.
None.
None.
And how much you think that is a year roughly?
You know, I've heard a bunch of numbers. I don't want to be, Bo may know better than I do. But I've heard a series of numbers. I know that nationally there's been a bunch of numbers too, but I couldn't tell you what in Georgia is currently being done on sports betting. Plus, it would depend on how you define sports betting currently. I wish I did know. I just don't.
That's probably a large number.
I'm sure it is.
Senator Hickman, can you come up here and sit or
Mike,
be at the microphone, please?
What I said earlier was that based upon Kiplinger's newsletter that came out in the last few days, they said in the United States, there's going to be $100 billion bet on sports in 2023. And if you just take that and look at the way this bill is tied in, we could potentially have $300 to $400 million at a minimum coming to the state of Georgia revenue, not counting the economic impact of 8,500 jobs and $1 billion economic impact. Money coming into the revenue, into the budget of Georgia could very well be $300 to $400 million a year. Thank you.
Senator Mallow?
I saw Senator Watson, so I'll defer to my colleague from the first, and if I could go after him.
Okay, Senator Watson,
Just,
are you for?
I'm three.
Three?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I often say that, ignorance is, curable, stupidity is terminal, so I'll try to be in the former. So lottery is, I've never done the lottery. So do you register for the lottery now? So
No.
you don't. So that would be something new that you have to register, and you would be 21 part of that registration.
That would be part of it. You don't register when you buy a lottery ticket or a lottery scratch off game.
Okay.
The lottery does offer what they call digi or digital games on your phone. They're effectively scratch off games just on your phone. And if you want to play that, you have to register and link your bank account. That's what would be similar to sports betting.
So your, let me follow up, please. So your bank account, not your credit card, and that's the way this is done too.
Correct.
And I presume if you said you have to register and be 21, there's some verification of that.
That's right.
That's easily done
That's
these days, I would presume.
And there's different states do it different ways, and the lottery would have, again, subject to the Administrative Procedures Act, rulemaking authority to further flesh out the requirements and meet those obligations.
Senator Mallow?
I just have a follow-up question on line 232. It says, sporting or athletic event conducted or organized by a sporting events operator. And before that, at line 230, a sporting or athletic event sanctioned by a national or international organization or association. When you talk about a professional athletic event, my only concern is, where is the prohibition for high school athletics? Because those can be organized by national or international organizations or associations. And by virtue of what I'm reading here, they would be allowed to bet on those high school athletics.
There is, and I'm looking for it, a prohibition specifically on high school athletics, and that statutory prohibition would carry over. I would argue to prevent anybody from the lottery to anyone else to betting on high school. Because the lottery can only do what y'all authorize it to do.
It's line 238.
238, okay, thank you.
Okay.
You'd stayed up all night here.
Senator, I read that and it said, if the majority of the participants are under the age of 18, what's the majority?
Majority is more than half.
Right, so if there were others who were over 18, then it could fly.
If a majority is under 18, then the whole group is not eligible.
Right.
Okay, any other quick, Senator Jones, which mic? There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard the term bandied about job creation. Can you speak specifically to what kind of jobs, how well those jobs would be, how well they're paying as it relates to this particular legislation?
Attorney Jones, I'd be glad to give you a copy of that economic impact study we had done last year. I don't remember the specific jobs, but as Senator Beach said, a lot of them would be rural agricultural jobs because of the feed industry, the hay industry, the shavings industry, the straw industry, that type of thing. But I'll be glad to get you a copy of that. Copy of that. Oh, okay, there we go. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions before I open it up for public comment? I do have one final question. Would you, in your opinion, say that, like Senator Hickman said, he placed a bet on the Super Bowl? So I don't know how he did that, but if you go through a bookie, you don't have a lot of protection. The citizens have no protection. Wouldn't this allowing sports betting to be legal and going through a regulated process and going through the lottery and DraftKings or whoever's going to kind of be the folks that, support this, wouldn't that be good for our citizens to have protection that they know their bet's going to be paid if they win, or they're going to have to pay if they lose?
Absolutely. We agree, Senator.
You agree with that statement? Okay. All right. Any other questions? And if not, we've got 7. All right, one more question, then we're going to go to the, I want to get all 7 folks before 9 o'clock. 9? Okay.
Yep. Senator Hickman or anybody, if you would, please, one more time, explain to me why it is that we thought we needed a constitutional amendment to do this previously, and now we don't think we need that.
Josh, you want to handle that or you want me to handle it? Because, Huh?
Either way.
well, you go and do it.
The Constitution itself, the language of it prohibits casino gambling and pari-mutuel wagering. Pari-mutuel wagering is defined in every dictionary I found, one from 76, one from 2010, Black's Law Dictionary, is betting on pools, which is exactly as Senator Hickman described it. It does not depend on horses, which is why, or any other animal, which is why the lottery and the lottery statute says that. So if you want to avoid prohibiting the Constitution, don't allow casino gambling. Casino gambling has been defined repeatedly as illegal gambling. Well, if sports betting is made legal, it's not casino gambling. And don't allow pari-mutuel wagering, which is pooled wagering that is not straight line or fixed odds. This act expressly prohibits pari-mutuel wagering, and it expressly prohibits casino gambling. This act also defines sports betting as a lottery game. And that matters because in 1997, some folks challenged Quick Cash, and I think it may have been Cash 3, and said that this is a gambling game, not a lottery game. And the Court of Appeal says no. The Constitution says the legislature gets to decide what is a lottery game. And the legislature gave that power to the lottery, and the lottery board approved those 2 games. So the court said, even if this is different than the plaintiffs in that case thought a lottery game may look like, it has been defined as a lottery game and it is constitutional. It does not involve pools and it does not involve illegal gambling in a facility, i.e. casino gambling. That's the difference than years past where you would change the Constitution to expressly allow pooled betting or casinos.
Thank you.
Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We've got 7 speakers and we got 30 minutes. So I'm gonna ask each speaker to go to the podium, introduce yourself and take 3 minutes so we can get all 7 folks because we got to be out of here at 9 o'clock. And we're gonna start with Mac Parnell. Is Mac here? Okay. Try to keep it to 3 minutes, please.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you so much for allowing testimony on this important measure today. My name is Mac Parnell. I serve as the Executive Director of the Georgia Faith and Freedom Coalition. As a proud graduate of the Georgia Academy for Economic Development, I believe that quality and responsible growth are absolutely vital to the continuing success of our state. Georgia is already the #1 state in which to do business with record revenues. The 2 largest economic development projects in our state's history have been announced in the last just few months. The Georgia Faith and Freedom Coalition does not believe that this represents quality and responsible growth. The expansion of gambling in our state would lead to increases in divorce rates, broken families, mental health issues, and a whole host of other issues that we've seen in other states that they've increased. Thank you so much for your time. The Georgia Faith and Freedom Coalition is opposed to Senate Bill 57 and the expansion of gambling in our state.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
thank you, Mr. Parnell. John Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've just retired here to Georgia and I'm about 1,700 feet away from being your constituent. So I've have 3 law degrees. I've been a law, economics, business professor, teacher, including here at Georgia universities for the last 40 plus years. Our office at the University of Illinois regularly, and my colleagues, we regularly testify under oath before Congress, before the National Gambling Impact Study Commission. We're, I think, extremely well known with regard to gambling issues, Illinois being one of the first states to get all of this gambling. I brought with me, I think the last time I was before this committee was several years ago, and I did bring with me copies of my testimony today, which I'll be glad to distribute. I understand procedures have changed somewhat. It should have been in yesterday, but years ago, we just brought them to the committee. Anyway, the title of my presentation is that constitutional authority is necessary for expanded gambling in Georgia. Predicated on non-existent technologies, the Metro Atlanta Chamber opinion is incorrect. I think gambling statutes are going to lose in court and be, with respect, embarrassing. The Atlanta Chamber opinion largely ignores and omits citations to the majority of relevant legal authorities, which substantiate the majority view that a Georgia constitutional amendment is necessary to authorize sports gambling in Georgia. Of particular importance is the related opinion of the Georgia Attorney General's office, which contradicts many of the legal interpretations and conclusions of the Atlanta Chamber opinion. And I would also point out, where my colleagues were called to testify, recent congressional hearing called Sports Betting in America, hearing before the Congressional Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, Homeland Security Investigations. The federal government is concerned about all of this sports gambling. And you probably saw the AJC opinion of John Barrow, an attorney and former member of Congress, that was published last week, saying that the Metro Atlanta Chamber opinion fails. It's predicated on non-existent technologies in 1992. And I would say that concerned with uninformed legislative decision-making regarding gambling issues, faculty initiatives in 1992 at the University of Georgia were instrumental in the federal
Okay.
enactment.
You have
of
one
the
more
Biden-
minute. I'm gonna give
Thank
you
you.
one more minute since you came down here and you are close to being a constituent.
Well, at the University of Georgia, resulted in the National Gambling Impact Study Commission, which said that you cannot regulate this being in Illinois, one of the first states to start the gambling. It has proliferated. The restrictions on not having collegiate sports gambling have disappeared. I remember Jesse Jackson coming to Chicago on Martin Luther King Day and saying that this makes poor people poorer. The NAACP in Illinois came out early against this. It doesn't work from an economic standpoint. And the last thing I would indicate is that our studies show that this hurts businesses. One reason that this state is the #1 business state for doing business, and one reason we retired here is because you don't have gambling. That one of the top 3 reasons for businesses not locating in a locale is gambling facilities. The final thing I would point out is that once you let in the gambling, you will not be able to control it. And the tribes can come
Ms.
in
Kent, I'm gonna have to cut
right
you off.
behind you.
Thank you very much and welcome to
So-
Georgia. Mike Griffin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to be able to share with you. My name is Mike Griffin. I'm the Public Affairs Representative for the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. This is my 16th year working down here at the Capitol, 10th year for Georgia Baptist, and been lobbying against expanding gambling. This will be about my 10th year dealing with this issue. So I've been there, done that. I got 5 T-shirts from it already, but we've been dealing with this a long time. But very quickly, our opposition with Georgia Baptist is basically on a 4-point level. Number one, from a moral issue. I mean, and Georgia Baptist just recently, and I have copies here to give you, passed a resolution against sports betting in November of 22. So we've got that here, and I'll be glad to share that with you. So we oppose it on a moral position. Georgia Baptist, according to the latest census report, represents about 1.5 million Georgians, over 3,000 churches, and have been passing resolutions since 1963, 22 of them opposing the expansion of gambling. I think there's also socioeconomic issues, which we've already heard. And I mean, you have a copy of this. It was given to the Senate a few weeks ago for the Illinois Law Review, which has all the legal documents in it to prove that the detriments of expanding gambling is worse than the benefits. Even Todd Jones, Representative Jones, who was the mental health legislation last year, testified at one of our press conferences that it's intellectually dishonest to talk about the benefits of gambling without talking about the detriments. So there are benefits, but if you weigh them out, the detriments are worse. It's not something that we need. And then thirdly, just simply the legal issue. I mean, I've read these opinions. I have a copy of what came from the Attorney General's office in 2016. We were dealing with daily fantasy sports, which is not the same thing we're doing by way of putting it under the lottery. They were not asking for that. But when you read the legal opinion about what is gambling, what's not gambling, what refers to what's already legal and what's not legal, this is not legal. And then lastly, and all God's people said, amen. All right. The last thing is it's an integrity issue. Integrity issue. And what I mean is the people in 1992 did not legalize what you're trying to do here today. That's not what they had in their mind. And I think we're doing, as I say in theological terms, doing a lot of hermeneutical gymnastics here to make this work. And it's just simply not there. I don't believe it. So I think the integrity issue is there, that we're going to, if we're going to continue to be the kind of people that we do, we really do the things that we think that the people in the state of Georgia expect. I do not believe that the people would want this way. I think it needs to be voted on by the people. I think that's a responsible thing that has to be done if there's going to be any additional gambling. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Peggy McCarthy, I believe.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Peggy McCarthy, and I'm a volunteer and board member for the Georgia Pet Coalition. My husband and I live in Roswell, and our family adopted a rescue horse from Save the Horses in 2015. I am here today to respectfully ask the committee to remove bill language from SB 57, which refers to live in-person equestrian track racing events. Over several dozen Georgia-based nonprofits share our concerns, and that list is growing. I'd like to emphasize that we're not here to address the overall sports betting bill. We are simply taking a position on we are taking a position against horse racing. You should have received a fact sheet that lists the financial and ethical reasons the Georgia Pet Coalition is opposed to legalizing horse racing in Georgia. I will highlight a few of these points. Public interest in horse racing is small and getting smaller. Since the year 2000, 41 racetracks in the U.S. have permanently closed. In contrast, only 2 racetracks with casinos have opened. According to Statista, the market value of horse racing has dropped by 1.8 billion over the past 10 years. Track attendance is down. Sensibilities have changed and people seem reluctant to embrace a sport that is perceived as exploiting horses for profit and then discarding them. To keep horse racing afloat in other states, there's been a slow creep in government subsidies, which now totals 1 billion annually. You may be interested in the plight of Pennsylvania, which is second only to New York in the amount of dollars spent on subsidies. Pennsylvania subsidizes racehorses 3 times as much as it subsidizes its college students. I would be happy to share this report written by the former director of the governor's budget office. It says in this report, despite the large government subsidies, horse racing generates little economic benefit in their state, and they have 6 racetracks. In addition, most racetracks in the U.S. are coupled with casinos and dependent upon a cut of casino revenue. Casinos are favored locations for sex trafficking, thus creating a brave public safety concern for victims, employees, and patrons. I wanted to mention the Kiplinger letter that was brought up. At the end of that report, it mentions the societal costs of the sports betting. One of the biggest problems in the industry is that discarded racehorses will require 20 to 30 years of lifetime aftercare. Although the number of aftercare programs has increased, everyone within the industry and outside of the industry agrees that the funding has not kept up and vulnerable horses will be left without a safety net, be vulnerable to slaughter. Georgia cannot handle the current number of unwanted and neglected horses and will be easily overwhelmed by the additional influx. For example,
Ms. McCarthy, please wrap up your times.
I have one more sentence.
We got 3 more people.
I have one more sentence. For example, Save the Horses, which is over out near, I think, Cherokee County, receives thoroughbreds from Florida, Tennessee, and South Carolina. And she's already overwhelmed. And as one industry person said, it's like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. Thank you for considering our request.
Thank you for being here. Now we have 2 folks on Zoom. First is Anne Marie Alabon. Is Anne Marie on
Yes.
Zoom?
Hi there. Good morning, everybody.
Okay, you good. Hold it to 3 minutes, please.
Okay. I'm going
All
to
right,
share
thank you.
for my slide presentation. My name's Anne Marie Albaugh. I'm with Georgia Companion Animal Advocacy. And I wanted to talk to you today about the hidden costs of bringing live horse racing to Georgia. The racing regulators, such as GHRC, Georgia Horse Racing Commission, or HISA, which is the federal law protecting thoroughbreds only, Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act, will not protect racehorses once they leave racing. The horse racing industry also breeds approximately twice as many foals as needed. All these extra horses will find themselves at the mercy of our private citizens and our already overwhelmed animal welfare infrastructure, which consists of the Georgia Department of Agriculture, animal control agencies, and nonprofit equine rescues. It will be up to Georgia's animal lovers to ensure that horses do not end up in a kill pen bound for slaughter. Every taxpayer and charitable dollar spent on the rehab and rehoming of all these extra horses will be $1 less for Georgia's dog, cat, and other animal rescues. Georgians will have to absorb through either purchase or adoption the horses the racing industry discards. Either those that lose races, cannot race due to injuries, or cannot make money at stud, anywhere between 0 and 8 years old. A horse can live to 30 years. It costs over $9,000 a year to care for just one healthy non-racing horse in Georgia, with an ex-racehorse needing rehab, retraining, and medical care can cost over $15,000 a year. So to do a quick calculation, just 100 additional horses every year thrown into the general population will cost Georgians over $200 million to care for the remainder of their lives. And this is a very conservative estimate. The estimate we calculated is net of the retired racehorse aftercare funding offered in previous year's legislation, horse racing legislation. That would only cover about $28,000 per year. And the legislation never stated which horses in which state that $28,000 would go to. Ironically, that contribution is a fraction of what racehorse owners would be receiving as incentives to breed more horses, ironically. Here's a list of conditions that retiring racehorses normally have coming out of racing. This is according to the American Association of Equine Practitioners. It can take several months or even years for a horse to fully recover from the physical and mental stress of the racetrack. More than half of retirements are involuntary due to damage. Given these injuries and exorbitant costs involved in caring for a retired racehorse, we cannot conclude that Georgia will have enough adopters or buyers to give these ex-racehorses homes. Most Georgians cannot afford even a regular non-racing healthy horse. An off-the-track racehorse can cost tens of thousands for rehab before the process of retraining can begin. Those that aren't adopted or bought.
Anne-Marie, if you could, Anne-Marie, I need you to go ahead and close out. And what I would like you to do is get a copy of this presentation to Paige, and we will distribute it. Oh, we already have. Okay,
Yeah,
we will make
did.
sure the committee sees it. But thank you for your presentation. We've got to move on because we've got some more speakers and we have to be out by 9.
Can I have one sentence?
So
more?
next is Donna. What's that?
Can I have one more sentence?
One, yes.
Okay,
be-
Georgia is already spending $136 million a year for just our dogs and cats. Our animal welfare infrastructure cannot absorb any more money. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Brovine, is she on? Donna?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
you have 3
Okay.
minutes.
Okay, mine is
Thank
short.
you.
Good morning, senators. Thank you for your time. My name is Donna Brewerine. I'm a resident of Ball Ground, a horse owner, and a constituent of Senator Beach. I'm the founder of the Georgia-based, not-for-profit American Equine Allies Association and its news media program, American Equine Awareness. AEA was established to help ensure horses are safe from slaughter at the federal level. A 2022 survey determined 80% of Americans oppose slaughter. It's my belief when speaking about horse racing, one must also speak about the subject of horse slaughter, since racehorses have long accounted for a large number of the slaughter-bound horses. The two subjects, horse racing and horse slaughter, walk hand in hand in my advocacy work. The cost of aftercare of racehorses is expensive. This results in many horses going to slaughter. There are not enough funds, or rescues to accept all the horses involved in racing. The burden of protecting the country's equine partners is placed fully on the shoulders of the private citizen horse owners, rescues, and concerned citizens that have educated themselves on the reality and suffering of horse slaughter. I'm opposed to betting on horse racing and gambling. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, our final speaker is John Walraven. If you would come up to the podium.
Entertainment, and I want to thank Senator Hickman for bringing this bill today. I want to thank Chairman Beach for your leadership and for all the members of the committee and your thoughtful questions. We support this bill. We're going to work on it as it goes through the process. Here for any questions if you have any. Thank you very much.
Well, you were quick. That's great. Okay. I want to thank all the speakers that came and spoke and on Zoom. Appreciate your public input. Is there anybody else before we close out the public input that may not have signed up that would like to speak in favor or oppose? Okay, well, again, thank you all for coming. I do want to make just one comment. We have live horse racing now with zero regulation. Think about that. Zero regulation. Those horses have no protection now from harness racing or any other kind of racing that we have going on in the state. This would allow more protection for the horses, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. With that, I'm going to give Senator Hickman 3 or 4 minutes to close. It's 8:50. If you could close in 5 minutes, and then we may have some final questions.
Oh, it'd actually be shorter time than that. First of all, we got to remember that people have a choice whether to gamble or not. And this is not shoving it down people's throats. Also, we got to remember that lady mentioned about Pennsylvania. I told y'all earlier, the state of Georgia will put nothing into this horse racing or sports betting situation. It's going to be all funded by private dollars, by private people. The second thing is, and I'm very concerned, I'm a horse person. I own thoroughbred race horses. I race in Florida, Kentucky, Indiana. And we got a very strong passion for our horses. My wife and I have a very strong passion. In fact, I'd be happy to tell you that Senator Summers, we gave 2 horses to Senator Summers a couple of years ago that were retired race horses. So
24 hours a day, by the way.
well, they're kind of like children. They sound like children. The other thing I want to point out, Senator Beach, is if you look at the bill on line 345 to 47, and I think Josh can point this out better than I can. There's very strong language about protection of horses and to talk about other animals. This is a sport. We got to remember about the poor guys that get hurt in football or baseball and those type of things. This is a sport that everybody has an opportunity at. So at that point in time, I'll turn it over. If anybody has any other questions, or Josh, you want to mention about
Mr. Belafonte, would you like to make any closing remarks? Okay, Mr. Moore. Okay, any final questions? And I'm gonna make some final comments. And any questions of the committee to Senator Hickman or Mr. Belafonte or Mr. Moore? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for this presentation. I want to thank everybody for getting here at 8 o'clock this morning. Thank you very much. I'm not sure when we're going to have another Economic Development Committee meeting. I've checked with the Secretary of Senate. We're trying to get another date at the end of this week on Thursday. If someone cancels, we've got a lot of conflicts. If not, we will meet next week. The posture of the chair is this. We're going to vote on this, but not today. We're hearing only today. What I would suggest to you, Senator Hickman, is to meet with everyone on this committee and go over this list you gave me, breaking down each section and what it does, and talk to everybody on this committee about your bill. And then we will take a vote on it next week. Any questions? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.